Everybody keeps saying, be visible, be visible, be visible. But guess what? Not everybody wants to hop on camera, and that is okay. If you're one of those people that likes to stay in the background, maybe you don't want to be in the spotlight on somebody's stage, you can still show up and allow your unique perspective to be heard and your thoughts to be known without you feeling like you're in such an alignment. Today, we're going to talk about how you can still be more visible in a way that fits your personality and your lifestyle. Because it is not true that we have to approach visibility in the same way. So if you're interested in figuring out how you can show up with greater alignment, then you're going to want to tune in. This one is definitely going to be for you. There's a misconception that we don't exist, that somehow our ability to excel at the highest level of our industry is limited, that overcoming barriers as a woman of color would be insurmountable. But what would happen if we decided to venture out on our own despite everything we're up against? I'll tell you. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, a healthcare consultant, consulting coach, high performance fanatic, wife, and proud girl mom. I help transform female professionals into thriving solo consultants. And just like you, I'm wearing all the hats and doing all the things. So this podcast is to empower the busy female professionals to move past fear to start and grow a successful consulting business, despite the obstacles you may encounter. We'll dive deep into consulting practice, business strategy, mindset, and more. So grab your cup of coffee or tea if that's your thing, and let's get started. Hello. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and I have to admit something. I don't always like to be on camera. Is that okay to say? I feel like in today's world is not okay to say, because we know that being on camera, showing your face, being more visible when it comes to marketing your consulting services is key. It's going to help people connect with you better. You're going to sell more offers. You're going to make more money if you're able to be more visible. However, that doesn't mean that it always feels good. It doesn't mean that we want to do it. And so if you're out there and you have been thinking about the fact that you need to be more visible, but finding it very difficult to actually do this on a consistent basis because it doesn't feel in alignment with your personality and just who you are and your lifestyle, then I want us to talk about it, because I can relate. And it's not that I have mastered this. I want to really share with you some of the struggles I've been having in hopes that maybe you can see some things that have worked for me and possibly try that and see if it works for you too. And if it doesn't, hey, listen, you could just hear my journey and know that someone feels your pain, because I definitely do. It has been a long and hard struggle for me to get to the point where I am willing and able to show up on video. And I just want to say I can relate. I can relate, because one of the first coaching programs, or group programs rather, that I have been a part of really stressed going live often. And it was something that I just didn't feel comfortable with for a number of reasons. One is the fact that I had no idea what in the world I was going to talk about, even when it came to trying to write out and script out the information that I wanted to communicate. It was just hard. I mean, it's so much easier for me to sit here behind my laptop with this microphone and chat with you like we're good old friends, because that's how I feel when I'm talking with you on this podcast. I feel like we're just having a conversation in my living room. It's not scripted. It's not all planned out. I don't have lights on. I'm trying to get to that point. I keep sharing with you guys, because I'm trying to hold myself accountable, of taking the podcast to YouTube so that we can do more video. But right now, it's just the comfort of my office and my home, and in my mind, you're sitting right across from me and we are spilling the tea and sharing all the things, right? So it has not always been comfortable to do something like go live on social media, mainly because in that moment, you're so worried about what you're going to say, what you're going to do, if you're going to make a mistake. You're looking at other people who are used to doing that and may have even more extroverted personalities because I'm more of an introvert, that it just seems as if you're not going to ever be able to do it right, quote unquote, right. But I will tell you that it does get better over time. And there are times still, even now, after becoming more comfortable with showing up and being more visible, that those things do not feel good per se when I'm thinking about it and I'm planning it out, because my crazy brain likes to tell me that, you know what, you don't really want to do this. And I have to tell it to take a seat and that I need to do this my way. And then things get a little bit better. So whether you are needing to show up in work and actually do more presentations, if you need to get on a TEDx stage or do a TED Talk, or if you are just trying to grow your LinkedIn visibility or your Instagram, Facebook, wherever it may be, wherever you need to show up and in whatever capacity where you need to show your face and share your perspective and allow your voice to be heard, we're going to work on that today, because I want you to do this in a way that feels natural for you. Because if it doesn't feel natural, if it doesn't feel comfortable, then you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it with consistency. So in order for you to build the muscle so that you can begin to do this more often, where it does not impact you as much in terms of the emotional pull that it may have right now, you have to begin to do these things more often so it becomes part of your routine. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because part of you being able to be more visible is finding a way to do it with greater alignment, in a way that fits you, your personality, and your lifestyle without forcing you to do it based upon a certain algorithm or process. And that's what I found myself in when I started learning how to do this years ago. I felt as if I was being forced to do it one particular way, and it always felt unaligned and very uncomfortable for me because it wasn't how I would typically communicate. And because of that, I can honestly say that I don't think that it went over very well. But with time, when I decided, you know what? You know how I am about breaking these rules. You know what? I'm about to break the rules. I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to take what I've learned and I am going to put my own spin to it. Then that's when everything started to click. So let's talk about how we're going to get you from behind the desk to in front of the camera in no time. A thriving consulting business is built on a solid business foundation and a consulting code that leads you toward your ideal business and your ideal lifestyle. And the great thing about this code is that it works for any type of consulting practice, whether you help clients with professional development, business management, grant writing, IT, or something entirely different. This consulting code is not rocket science and is not beyond your reach. And when you crack the code, it can jumpstart the growth of your solo consulting practice and is what you need to know to get started and land your first clients and nothing more. This is a step-by-step process I wish I had so many years ago. And that's why I wanted to share this with you and how you can do this too. So if you're interested in starting your consulting business and creating a desirable offer to generate leads for your offer and to make sales, then the consulting code is your solution. Visit www.excelatconsulting.com for more information. One of the biggest challenges when you're thinking about how you can become more visible is, what in the world do you say? I think figuring out what you need to say and what message you're trying to communicate, that is one of the hardest parts of the whole process. And it creates so much anxiety for many people that it will stop you in your tracks, because when you don't know what you're going to say or what you are trying to communicate, what message you're trying to share, it's hard to think about how you're going to actually show up and do this with any level of sincerity. Because at the end of the day, what makes marketing effective, especially when selling a consulting service, is the fact that people need to be excited about it. They need to believe that you truly believe in what you're saying. And so if you're not able to show up with that level of excitement and enthusiasm, well, look, it's going to be very difficult for that message to resonate. So I think this whole process of just trying to figure out what we need to say and what we need to communicate is part of what creates so much of a block in terms of our creativity and how we're going to carry that out. One of the things that I think is extremely helpful is to take the messaging part out of the equation, especially when you're first getting comfortable with just being more visible. What this can look like is, instead of focusing on a situation where you have to communicate a message, where you have to share a talk, where you have to do some type of presentation, to instead begin to capture the content, the information, the visible unspoken messages that are around you. And that simply means documenting aspects of your day. This can be very easy for you to do. And then not only is it helpful just for you to just show your face, for instance, on camera, when it comes to social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram, or any other platform, but it also allows you to showcase what you do day in and day out. Now, remember, when your potential client and your audience, when they're consuming all of this information, when they're consuming this content, especially online, or even if they're consuming it in some other venue or format, being able to see you at work resonates. That sticks with somebody. If I'm able to see you in action, that is something that truly stands out. So part of your being more visible doesn't necessarily mean, initially especially, that you have to be the one talking to the camera. Maybe part of breaking into the thought of just being more visible is to begin to document aspects of your day, of the work that you're doing, and the people that you're serving. And listen, I know this can be difficult, especially when you're working in a consulting fashion and you're working with clients that, let's be honest, often want you to be the only client that they serve. They don't want to showcase the fact that they are seeking assistance or help at times. So there is a certain aspect of privacy that has to be maintained and confidentiality around the clients and the work that you're doing. But there are still ways for you to show what it is that you offer. Maybe that's an aspect of the preparation that you're doing prior to the meeting. It could even be glimpses of you as you're talking in a meeting or a conference without having the audio or the volume on. Because most of us are very comfortable with communicating one-on-one or to a small group, or maybe even to a large group amongst a venue where we feel like we know and understand the people around us. And I think part of what makes being more visible in the online space, especially more anxiety producing, is the fact that you have no idea who's looking at you. And so your mind begins to play tricks on you and has you thinking about all of the people that may be there judging and critiquing and hating. And that is the part that most people feel uncomfortable with. And no matter how many times I can tell you to forget what anyone else may say or think, that's hard to do. It is just honestly hard to do at times. So this can be an exercise to get yourself comfortable with just being able to see yourself on camera. That's a huge hurdle within itself, because part of just being off camera or out of the spotlight is the fact that you're used to not being seen unless you're choosing to be seen by those who you feel will respect your presence. So this puts yourself in a more vulnerable situation. And I want to share that that is a huge step forward. That is progress. So part of this is just becoming comfortable with the idea of being more vulnerable around people that you don't know. And this can actually be a wonderful way for you to kind of dip your toe in, begin to be more visible so that people see your work. They're understanding better what you do, the type of services that you provide, the type of clients that you work with, the type of venues and events that you are typically associated with. And then we can begin to kick it up a notch. But this is a wonderful first step in getting started. Now, the next thing that felt uncomfortable for me, and still does if I'm honest with myself, is the energy that's around being more visible. I just don't always feel like it. And there are times where we have a lot going on in our lives. If you are busy trying to get a lot of work done, maybe your kids have a lot of things going on and you're just running here, there, and yonder every day, trying to make sure that they get to all of their practices and events and things of that nature. Or maybe you are just wanting to relax and chill out a bit and not have to think about being more visible again after you get home from work, especially if you're building your business while you have a 9 to 5. It can be difficult to find the energy to just show up. And one of the reasons why this can be problematic is because if we don't find a way around navigating the energetic investment that we have to put into this whole aspect of being more visible, then it can keep us from being consistent. This is often how many people fall off because they don't feel like it. And we often want to motivate people and tell them that, oh, listen, it doesn't matter how you feel, you need to do it anyway. And most people try to convince you that feelings should not be honored, that you need to do it anyway, no matter how you feel. And I'm just not part of that camp. I'm not part of that camp because I know what it feels like to not have the energy or just the mental capacity to think about how you're going to then be challenged with speaking to an audience, whether that is in person or if it's online. There will be times where you're just not in a mood, and that is normal. There is nothing abnormal about that. And although you can push through, I will argue that even if you did, it wouldn't convey the level of enthusiasm and desire that you need to build in order to sell the services that you are really being more visible for. So one way of getting around that I found to be extremely helpful is being able to batch create content, especially when it comes to anything that you're doing online. It's more difficult to do this or kind of use a strategy like this for a live presentation. Although what I always suggest with clients is that if you have these periods of low energy that tend to show up in your life from time to time, be mindful of when that occurs. Be mindful, especially as a woman, where you are, even when it comes to things such as your cycle or maybe the changes that are happening within your life, being very mindful of how you are emotionally responding to those things. And then scheduling those live events and talks when you know that you're typically in a season where you have more energy and more capacity. But when you're talking about online content, this is a great reason. And one of the main reasons I have found batching to be helpful. Because what you end up doing is that you compile all of your creation and the things that require you to be more visible into a set period of time at which your capacity and your energy is high. Therefore, you're not forced to show up in those moments where you don't feel like it, and you can still be consistent. That's part of the win-win and the benefit there. Is because when you have those low energy days, it's not just a matter of saying, I don't feel like it, I'm not going to do this today, and then therefore you're not visible. You're able to reach back and to pull things that you've already recorded, things that you've already put together, and then use that to show up online in the online space. And although it may not be as impactful as maybe if you went live on LinkedIn or went live on Instagram or some other platform, it still is going to convey a message that is going to resonate with your audience, and people are going to see your face. People are going to connect with you, especially if you're able to create that content in a very engaging manner, which oftentimes can be more engaging than the live that you may be ready to do when you don't have the energy or the capacity to do it. The one thing I believe in is that we have to honor our energetic space, the capacity that we have in any given moment. I do not believe that it is necessary for you to create scenarios repeatedly over and over again that cause you so much discomfort, there is a way for you to build a bridge so that you're able to progress and grow and then be able to show up more effectively in a consistent manner. And batching will help you do that because it's going to take you from this point of being forced to create on the fly to giving yourself the opportunity to utilize those periods where your creativity is high, where your energy is high, where your capacity is expanded, and maybe you have a little peace and quiet around the house, right? And you're able to get a lot more done. So this can be another helpful way for you to be able to be more visible by batch creating your content, especially when the content is going to be online. And for those presentations that you have live and in person, thinking about where you typically are in the flow of your life and centering those dates at which you're going to present as best you can around those periods that typically are going to be better for you and your lifestyle. Okay, so here's the last tip. Stop overthinking everything. Stop it. No more overthinking. If you are a problem solver, if you're a consultant, know that you are one that is constantly thinking about ways to solve problems and you're thinking about how you can do things better. You're used to putting out excellence at all times. But look, when it comes to you being more visible, the key is not to overthink it. You just need to lean into communicating from the heart. Share a message that you want to share. Don't rely so heavily on formulas or scripts or ways of doing things in terms of a template or a process to the point at which you stunt and hinder your ability to communicate effectively. I've been there. I know it to be true. It's one of the reasons why, for instance, when I work with clients in the consulting code, I share a sales process that utilizes a overall guide instead of a script because I know how difficult it is to communicate, especially when you are thinking about how you are going to approach this correctly based upon what a script has outlined or what a template has outlined. We often need the freedom to communicate from the heart. You know what your audience needs to hear. You know the information that you're able to share. You know how to help people. That's what you do day in and day out. And often what happens is that when we find these templates and these formulas, it's not that they're not helpful. They are extremely helpful. But when we don't give ourselves the grace and the ability to utilize those tools, but then still put our own spin on it and veer away from it when we feel it's necessary, then we confine ourselves to a structure that was not created with us in mind. It wasn't created for us. Often templates and formulas were created based upon someone else's experience, but that person's business, that person's audience is not yours. So it's okay to modify. It's okay to make changes. The key is to learn the overall concept. I always like to stress this, learn the concept and the context in which that recommendation is being given. And then think about how you can modify and adapt to suit your needs. So being able to communicate more effectively from the heart and stop overthinking the process is going to make you showing up and being more visible a lot easier. Because instead of you being worried about, I need to say this in the first 3 seconds before I go live, or oh my gosh, I need to make sure that I give a call to action 5 minutes before I end the live or 2 minutes into the video recording, whatever it may be. Instead of you thinking about all of those things, you're going to fall back into the fact that, hey, I'm about to show up. I'm going to be more visible. I'm going to share my thoughts on this event or this thing that's happening in my industry right now. I'm going to help people understand this better because I think if they understood why this is important, they're going to make a different decision that is going to improve their lives. That's the type of mindset and the energy that we need to take into this whole visibility process so that whether or not we're showing up online, on a stage, or in any other capacity, that we're bringing our best selves that know the information that is most important to those we're trying to help. And we'll be able to communicate more effectively because we're going to communicate from the heart. The fact that I can sit here and talk to you and share these challenges I've had with showing up, and the fact that I've always found it hard to follow scripts and templates and formulas will allow somebody who is listening to understand and know that they are not alone. You're not alone. You have somebody that can relate to the fact that you don't like to do those things either. And have the knowledge and the understanding that it's okay to do something different and it still works. Doing something different that aligns with your personality and that feels more natural to you can still work. And I think that's the overall, I guess I would say, message that I just want to share with you today. Is the fact that it's okay to take a step-by-step process to growing in your ability to be more visible and to be more bold when it comes to showing your face, especially online or on stage, and allowing your voice to be heard. It's okay to honor the energy that you're feeling in a given moment and to respect those things that are going on in your life that may not be the easiest for you to create content, for instance, at any particular time, or maybe hop on a stage or on a live when people tell you you should 2 or 3 times a week. It's okay to honor those differences and to stop overthinking the process and know that, yes, there are ways that can improve the likelihood of someone maybe viewing a video longer or staying engaged during a presentation. But at the end of the day, if it lacks heart, if it lacks your unique perspective and enthusiasm and excitement, how well is that really going to do anyway? I will argue that it's probably not going to do very well. So it's okay to focus on the message that comes from your mind, your heart, and your knowledge, and use that as a guide rather than being so critical of yourself and trying to stick with scripts, outlines, and formulas. Now, I know a lot of people may disagree with me saying this, because what I'm saying is pretty much pushing against a lot of the rules that we often create. But I think that if you have been part of, this podcast and this world and this community for long enough, you know that I'm a firm believer that it's okay to break the rules, that rules are given you as structure. And outside of the laws we have in society, when it comes to these rules around building businesses and building your presence in consulting in particular, you have the ability to adapt and adjust so that it fits you, your needs, and allows you to show up in your greatest strength into your greatest ability. That's the whole purpose behind this. So if being more visible means that you need to capture and document some of those moments where you're working and batch create content and stop overthinking and just communicate from the heart, so be it. So be it, because I know that if you do those things, you're going to show up more often, and your showing up more often is going to lead to more business, more conversions, and more sales. I guarantee it. All right. I hope this episode helped you. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to share it with a friend. And as always, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I love to keep this conversation going and talk more about visibility. I have enjoyed this short series around being more visible because I know that if we can do this, we're going to grow our businesses tremendously. Listen, we have a whole half of a year left, and we have some goals to make sure that we crush. And being more visible is going to be one way of doing that. All right, guys, until next time, have a good one. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave your review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We're on a mission to increase the success and longevity of women in consulting, and you can help us do that. Also, I'd love to hear from you, so let's connect at Dr. Angelina Davis on Instagram or LinkedIn. And don't forget to visit excelatconsulting.com for more information to support your consulting journey. Until next time, take care.